What a pleasure it is this morning to sit down with Elizabeth May, an opportunity to talk about how we're going to make sure that we work together, as indeed Canadians expect all parliamentarians and all parties to work together to serve Canadians, to build a better future for this country.
Well, Green Party parliamentary leader Elizabeth May says the Prime Minister has a big choice to make. Either increase Canada's climate change targets and kill the Trans Mountain pipeline expansion, or lose the support of the Green Party caucus and all those young Canadians who voted Green. But with just 3 seats in the House, will the government make concessions for the fourth party, and what will it take, or the fifth party, and what will it take for the Greens to support the government's throne speech? Elizabeth May is the parliamentary caucus leader for the federal Green Party. Ms. May, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
I'm still getting used to that new title.
That's good, eh?
You're not
I like former leader. Nice lead in.
Okay, so you're not the former leader, but you did get to meet with the Liberal leader, with the Prime Minister today. How would you describe the tone and nature of that meeting?
Well, very cordial. And of course, I was the last of the opposition party leaders to meet with the Prime Minister. And I think our conversation probably took the same kind of arc as with the others. But I tried to focus on, these are our lines that are drawn in the sand and not, actually, the way they're drawn are actually in concrete. They are not moving. But there are a lot of other areas where there's room for cooperation, and we do want to work across party lines, and we do want this Parliament to work. Okay,
let's talk about the cooperation first. What are the areas where you think you and the Liberals, I mean, the math is what the math is. The 3 seats are not going to, they're not going to live or die on your seats, but what are the areas where they can count on your support?
Well, I was really happy to have the Prime Minister confirm, and apparently he's told other leaders this, so it's not news to other leaders, but I don't think it's been in the public, that the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples is coming back as legislation with the government, as government bill to get it through. That was one of our top priorities and remains one, so that's a place we can work together. Pharmacare is another one where, I thanked him for the Hoskins report. The Green Party approach to pharmacare to move faster, but looking for common ground. You've got the NDP, the Greens, and the Liberals all in favor of let's move on pharmacare. We should work together on that. Obviously, we have a lot of concern about abortion access, particularly with the threats to the clinic in Fredericton.
New Brunswick, yeah.
Clinic 554. I raised that with him, and he was aware of it. He wants to do something to make sure that that clinic doesn't close. So there were broad areas of agreement. I think he's interested in the proposal that we've made to have truth in advertising legislation within the Elections Act, so that during an election, if something that's flagrantly untrue, as opposed to just a matter of opinion, that the public will have a right to say to elections candidate, can this be pulled? So we're looking at a private member's bill through the Green Party, but it'd be better if it was legislation that came through the government to amend the Elections Act to ensure, right now we're more protected from Russian bots than we are from other parties that tell things that aren't true.
But just talk a little bit about pharmacare for a second, if we can, because pharmacare, the word means different things to different parties, right? Like it could be a fill-in-the-blanks proposal. Jagmeet Singh, the NDP leader, said the other day he wants universal single-pay pharmacare.
That's the only kind that makes any sense. We've been calling for a universal single-payer pharmacare since the 2015 platform. We were the only party calling for it. It's very clear from a lot of academic research that this country will save billions of dollars a year, and Canadians will get the medications they need.
But is that the only option you would support? Like if they move in this direction in a fill-in-the-blanks initial steps, no dice?
Well, no, the idea that, when Bill Morneau offered up the idea that, most people have medical insurance that covers their drugs so they don't need help, that's a non-starter for us, because what that means is you're going to make the whole thing more expensive. By having single-payer universal, then you've got the economies of scale for bulk buying that brings down the price of drugs. So we don't want to keep the pharmaceutical lobby blocking us from getting what will deliver the best savings and the best health care for Canadians.
Okay, I know going into the meeting you said priority number 1, climate change. Priority number 2, climate change. Priority number 3, climate change. Did you get enough on climate change that you think you'd be able to support the throne speech that we're going to hear on the 5th of December?
I didn't expect to get a full answer to the things we're demanding. What we want is Canada to have a science-based policy that does what the Liberals say they want to do, which is avoid climate disaster. And when we talk about climate disaster, we're not talking about an environmental issue. We're exactly where all the school children are who are school striking and saying, you're stealing our future. We have an obligation in our generation, and within the next 18 months to 2 years, we must make significant transformational changes in the direction of our economy. We don't have to get there in 18 months to 2 years, but as I reminded the Prime Minister in our meetings, the Liberals now set a target that by 2050, Canada will be carbon neutral. Well, if we stay with the same target we've got till 2030, we will be incapable of reaching the 2050 target. So that means a significant change in direction soon.
So within 18 months to 2 years, we need to make significant
Well,
change. Within 18 months to 2 years, they hope to have a new pipeline done with the expansion of the Trans Mountain Pipeline. Knowing that is still part of their core plan, does this mean you vote against them on every motion of confidence because you've made climate your issue?
Well, climate is all of our issues if we're grown-up human beings and want our children to have a
I mean, for
world.
parliamentary votes.
For
right?
parliamentary votes, we cannot vote confidence in a government that has a plan. As the current government of Canada target is a target for climate catastrophe within the lifetime of our children. So it's not negotiable. And I believe he can be convinced. I believe Liberal cabinet members can be convinced. I know a lot of Liberal caucus members. For that matter, I know Conservative backbenchers and NDPers who understand, and certainly the Bloc Québécois says they care about climate. I urged him to go to the Madrid summit, to go to COP25, bringing with him a new target for Canada that puts us out of the category of laggard and back to being leaders.
So if he sets a new target, but is still intent on the pipeline, I mean, Western Canada is angry right now. I mean, I understand your point on the need for significant action, but if you take that action in the manner and in the time frame you're suggesting, that does not make things any better in Saskatchewan and Alberta.
There are other ways to talk to premiers about climate action.
But never mind the premiers, the people of Alberta, the people of Saskatchewan, the people of my home province of Newfoundland and Labrador who fly out there to work, they're going to be put in an even tougher squeeze.
The tougher squeeze that we all face is continuing to pretend that there's a future for fossil fuels. There is not a future for fossil fuels if there's a future for humanity. These two are incompatible. So what we need to do is plan for phasing out fossil fuels, which means a new target for 2030, which implies significant reductions in fossil fuels, which means you can't build a pipeline.
But how do you mollify the anger then? How do you ease that economic anxiety and rage that is building in these provinces?
I suggested to the Prime Minister right now the books for the province of Alberta could be significantly improved if the liabilities that are on their books as a province of toxic liabilities that are actually...
Industrial sites, you mean?
Well, yeah, abandoned oil wells, the ongoing toxic liability of the sites that have been abandoned in the oil sands regions, the tailings ponds. There are billions of dollars of toxic liabilities. Many of them are already on the books of the province of Alberta. You could balance the budget a lot easier if the federal government said, okay, we'll take those toxic liabilities off your hands. We'll take on the cleanup. We'll keep subsidizing the fossil fuel industry in Alberta, but it's only for the cleanup from now on. So that's a lot of jobs, and it moves in the direction that the Alberta government is already committed to, which is regeneration of those sites to become ecologically healthy, big job, to be restored to Indigenous governance. There is an agenda here that could work, particularly as about 10% of the abandoned oil wells in Alberta could produce geothermal electricity, which would be positive to the economy and good for the environment.
What's the price tag for something like that? What's the total book value of the liabilities?
Actually, the book value is in the tens of billions of dollars. So you remove that from the books of the province of Alberta. I suggested some other things. I mean, it's really...
nationalize the liability.
It's really important that we work together. The province of Alberta, the people of Alberta, Saskatchewan, Newfoundland and Labrador are not somehow alien from the same planet, that we all have problems. If we ignore the climate crisis, there is no separate planet Alberta for people to go to, which doesn't get the impacts of the climate crisis. This is all of our problem, and the solutions are available, but we won't get anywhere if we decide that somehow you can build a pipeline and still have climate action. You can't.
But they're going to press ahead with the pipeline. I mean, they have made this very clear. They see this as step one in dealing with some of the anger and alienation in Western Canada.
How is it working for them so far, do you think?
Well,
sorry, but...
Right. But, you know, this is their stated plan, as you well know. So does this mean we're going to go into this parliament when it opens on the 5th of December and it's going to be a nay vote all the time from the three Greens that are in there?
We are going to vote for those bills that we support, but we cannot vote confidence in a government that is taking this country in the direction of being, I mean, of the industrialized world, there's only two countries worse than us on climate action, Australia and Saudi Arabia. We do not want to compete for last place. It's time for us to turn around, put in place a real climate plan.
You think Trump's America is better than Canada right now?
According to the survey that was just done, well, yeah, the United States is still reducing emissions faster than we are. The two countries in the industrialized world worse than us are Saudi Arabia and Australia. We need to put ourselves competing for first place. We need to get with the Norways and the New Zealands and the other countries around the world that are actually doing it.
So did the Prime Minister give you any indication in this meeting today that he's going to follow the path you would like him to follow? Or did he say, thank you very much, I'll take it under advisement?
More the latter, but I think there was some sincerity behind that. He said, I can't make decisions around COP25, which is in Madrid, which opens December 2nd. I was saying, look.
Well, he's going to be at NATO, I think.
Well, that's right, but he
So-
can come for the second week. He could give a speech in Madrid in the second week of the climate negotiations, after the speech from the throne, after voting on the estimates which are necessary for the government of Canada to keep functioning, and actually deliver the kind of commitment that the world needs. We missed, as a country, the United Nations Special Summit on the emergency of climate change, which was September 23rd. Canada's political presence was not there. It's not too late for Justin Trudeau to go to COP25 in Madrid saying, we're taking away the target that we put in place under Stephen Harper, which is still our target, we're withdrawing that. And we're replacing it with one that is consistent with the science, as we understand it, of where we need to go to get to carbon neutrality by 2050. He's taken the step of saying we're going to get to carbon neutrality by 2050. He took that position in the campaign. Well, you can't get there from here. You got to make some real changes and make them soon. And I think the world response to that would be that other countries would move too. And that's what really matters.
I just want to ask you a quick question about your old job
Yeah.
as the national leader of the party. We've talked to Mike Schreiner, David Kuhn, Peter Bevan-Baker. They don't want it.
Yeah.
Does anybody want your job?
Yes.
Are the people coming forward? What are we going to see here?
I'm really excited about the candidates who are coming forward. I don't want to be announcing, but I can tell you that I think that the Canadian imagination, I think a lot of Canadians who voted Green in the past are going to want to join the party to help us choose a leader. I'm hoping, I think there are a number of women candidates, indigenous, racialized, former members of other parties and
Jody
other governments.
Wilson-Raybould, perhaps?
No, because I think the party council made a decision that and I certainly support the notion that the next leader of the Green Party of Canada must be bilingual. I'm bilingual now, but I struggled with my French, particularly in the beginning of my time as leader. We need a fully bilingual leader. And I think the range of candidates that we're going to see will be, well, I know it'll be impressive. I'm excited. And, I've sort of been, I'm excited, but I don't want to say the names of
You'll have a
people who are
contested race. You guarantee there will be a contested race for your leadership?
Oh, my goodness.
Yes?
There's going to be a lot of people. And I hope it will be. I mean, I don't have anything to do with the committee that's running it, but they're looking at making sure there are debates across the country, looking at engagement with the party so that we build our membership and build our fundraising numbers before we go into the next election.
Okay, Elizabeth May, we're going to leave it there. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, David. I didn't expect to get a full answer to the things we're demanding. What we want is Canada to have a science-based policy that does what the Liberals say they want to do, which is avoid climate disaster. For parliamentary votes, we cannot vote confidence in a government that has a plan. This current government of Canada target is a target for climate catastrophe within the lifetime of our children. So it's not negotiable. And I believe he can be convinced. I urged him to go to the Madrid summit, to go to COP25, bringing with him a new target for Canada that puts us out of the category of laggard and back to being leaders.
Okay, that's Green Party parliamentary leader Elizabeth May. She met with the Prime Minister today, the last of that series of meetings between Justin Trudeau and the opposition parties. And as you heard, she did not go into the meeting with a list of demands she expected to see fulfilled, a different approach than what Andrew Scheer and Jagmeet Singh took. We're back with the power panel. Jason Markisoff, Vicky Mochama, Marie Vestal, and Paul Wells. So, Paul, it's been an interesting week here in Ottawa where the leaders who lost the election sat down with the leader who won the election and demanded concessions. Do you think we're going to see that kind of thing in the throne speech when it happens?
Well, I'll tell you, Elizabeth May's demand is almost the easiest one that he's heard to fulfill, right? He can promise the most ambitious climate targets ever because no Canadian Prime Minister has ever met their climate targets. They've never met a predecessor's climate targets, so you can make up whatever targets you like. I guess it is okay for opposition leaders to meet with the Prime Minister and pretend that they won the election. And I don't think he's going to have to offer really substantive concessions because everyone's exhausted. Scheer is contested.
People are broke.
The NDP is bankrupt. Well, no.
Not bankrupt, but broke.
Skint. There's at least about a year before anyone is going to be in a kind of a mood to try and tempt fate. So I think I think the Liberals are beginning to sort of realize the extent to which they really did win this election. They didn't just sort of win it.
And it also helps, I think, that large parts of the Liberal platform are things that the NDP or the Greens asked for, right? So they all agree that there should be some sort of national pharmacare program. So he can do that, pretty much guaranteed their support. They all pretty much want climate action. And as Paul said, they can either promise very ambitious things with no intention to do it or actually try to do a little bit better. There's also things like federal minimum wage that the Liberals promised. There's a lot of measures, social measures like parental leave.
Common ground all over the place.
Health leave, yeah. And so it's not that hard for them to seek support from one of them versus seek support from the Conservatives where it might be harder. It's also not so hard for Miss May to be categorical when she says that she would never vote to give her confidence to the Liberals because it doesn't really matter. There are only 3 of them. She can't topple the government. And so it's easier for her to say that than, say, Jagmeet Singh from the NDP, who has been asked the same question repeatedly. Are you willing to support this government given your opposition to Trans Mountain Pipeline? And he has refused systematically to answer that question. And I suspect it's because he knows, as Paul said, that he might have to swallow a poison pill and vote for them because he doesn't want to go in an election because they don't have any money, everyone's tired. And quite frankly, I don't think voters would be super happy with any party that made them go back to the polls so quickly.
Yeah, Vicky, it seems the Prime Minister is on a shorter leash because he is in a minority government situation, but it's not maybe as short as some people thought on election night when we saw that result coming in, just because of the dynamic of the Parliament that he's inherited.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that's really striking is, you know, in the aftermath, we talked about the deep divisions, but what's rarer to talk about the massive overlaps that there are between the Liberals and a number of the parties. You know, pharmacare, of course, has been mentioned, but there are major overlaps in almost every single section of government between the Liberals and any other party. And so they have a lot of room, actually, to govern. They have a lot of room to make sure that their agenda gets done, but also there's a lot of room for the other parties to push them a little bit further. So it's an opportunity for the parties. It's an opportunity for Jagmeet Singh and the NDPs, which is why I think he's refusing to be categorical about which way he'll vote and which way he'll go. But I also think that it's an opportunity that the Liberals might just lose, thinking that they do have a sustainable and clear advantage over the other parties, but I don't necessarily know that that's true. I think as exhausted as everyone is and as broke as some of the parties might be or as underprepared as they might be for an election, I think it's those little moments, those little striking points that might be the reason why Jagmeet Singh or even Francois Blanchet might push back against the government. And I don't know that voters will appreciate being sent to an election, but I wouldn't, rule it out of hand.
No, I don't think voters are in the mood for it right now either, based on
or are we?
Or reporters. Yeah, I definitely don't want to go back on the road. I can tell you that.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.